Hello and welcome to Real People, Real Lives. I'm Sandy. On this show, we explore the stories of everyday people, their struggles, successes, and the experiences that make them unique. Each episode brings you a fresh perspective from someone with a story to tell. Let's jump in. Today I'm joined by Pete Colter, whose life story is one of struggles, survival, faith, and transformation. Pete grew up in the small village of Clinton in central New York and spent much of his childhood deaf, undergoing 13 operations before gaining his hearing right before becoming a teenager. Not long after, he began facing serious mental health challenges, including depression, bipolar disorder, addiction, suicide attempts, multiple rehabs, and time spent in mental institutions. During one of the darkest moments of his life, Pete experienced what he describes as a powerful encounter with Jesus, an experience that changed the direction of his life. No matter what someone believes personally, stories like Pete's remind us how important hope, faith, and believing in something greater than ourselves can be, especially when life feels unbearable. Today, Pete is an author and a screenwriter with a show filming this summer and several other projects in development. Pete, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show, to be one of the first guests that you have with this new show. I'm elated and delighted to be here.
Can you take us back to what life was like growing up, and
Yes.
What was it like being deaf or hard of hearing for most of your childhood?
It was difficult. It was very painful, to be honest with you. The most that I remember is very sharp pains in the bottom of my ears, and my eardrums would constantly pop. Surgeries they didn't do much. They did what they could for the momentary time that they could. And then after that, it was just difficulties with school and difficulties just getting sleep. I became an insomniac because of it. I got so used to just not sleeping because of the pain and, having to put hair dryers, on my ears. My mother used to do that a lot to try to calm down the swelling and stuff. Secondly, I think it was just kind of sort of hard on my emotions. It was hard to deal with and try to differentiate and kind of discover things without having the hearing, listening to my parents try to talk, but it completely garbled. So I wouldn't really understand much of what they were saying, and that's frustrating. I was born with colic also, so I was constantly crying and stuff, and they weren't sure if it was because my ears were in so much pain, or it was because of the colic, or it was because of the chemical imbalance that I had in my brain that they didn't realize until I was, 12 years old, and epilepsy and stuff like that. I also have that. It was a mixed match of a bunch of things.
How did you get through schooling and life in general? Did you have friends?
Yeah, I had friends, not very many when I was younger because I didn't really stay in school long. I repeated second grade twice because I missed a whole entire year. One year I had 3 operations in 1 year. I had my tonsils and my adenoids taken out, and then I had permanent tubes put in, and then they fell out. And then I had semi-permanent tubes put in 3 months after that. So I missed the whole 182 days or whatever it is of school. So I had to repeat second grade. And then because I had to repeat second grade, the tubes, they worked for a little while. And then I would have to learn how to understand what people were saying and learn how to speak in a fluent manner. And that was a lot of work, so I missed a lot of school during that too.
And so how old were you when you finally started the journey of hearing better and the healing process?
I was about 11 years old. I had gotten a drum kit. I asked my dad for a drum kit. I didn't know why. I just wanted to play. I felt musically inclined for some reason. I just wanted to bang on stuff. I don't know if that was contributed to the depression I was starting to feel or the frustrations that I had and the anger inside of me because of, the difficulties. He went and got me a drum kit, and I started playing that. About 3 months into it, my ears burst, and from then I could hear. I went out to my kitchen at the time. My mother saw blood coming out of my ear, and she was like, all right, what's going on? It's happened again. Your eardrum has popped, so she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, I can hear what you're saying. I can literally hear your voice now. and it was clear. It was super clear. And I had never heard her voice so intricately, so detailed. You know what I mean? It was like for the first time hearing your mom's voice, but you're like 12 years old. And so I didn't know I cried a little bit. My emotions were crazy. I remember. And I remember
I feel like I want to cry. I feel like I want to cry right now hearing that because I just feel so much. I can't even imagine.
Yeah, no, I was, and even thinking about that, I still have the memory of her voice like imprinted deep in my brain, and she passed in July. And I remember that every so often, I can hear it so perfectly.
That's actually a beautiful memory. That is a beautiful
it's a
memory.
Great one. Yeah. I thank God for that. I'm very lucky to have that memory. Sorry, I got a little choked up there.
No, that's okay.
Thinking about it, it's kind of,
what I mean? That is such a beautiful memory to have. It's just amazing. So, because I lost my mom 2 years ago this month. Wow. There's little things I still have recordings of her, and there's memories like that you just hold on to because that's what you have.
Yeah, you have to, I think. I think it'll get you through those tough times, because there's going to be tough times. And when I do have those tough, kind of grueling days where I'm like, oh, I have to get work done, or I have to do this, or I want to succeed in this, but it's just moving so slowly. I remember her voice. So it brings me to a very calm, centered area where I can just continue and move forward,
That is beautiful. It's a great way to not only honor your mom, but just keep yourself moving forward, Because you struggled, you kind of briefly mentioned it, you struggled with depression, bipolar disorder.
Badly. Yeah.
Addiction. Yeah. What period of your life was this? And really, how low did you get before you came back up?
Right after I'd gained my hearing, I immediately formed a band, like a year into playing drums because I had a talent for it. I had never had lessons. Nobody ever taught me. I just sat down and knew how to play. I think to this day, that was God giving me that talent. And that talent carried me for many years in many festivals, many sold out shows, many headliners. I've played with great bands over the years and hacked out places, and I was very, very, very fortunate to do that. But with that also comes the crowd. It comes the drugs for you to have whenever you need them. So I got myself into some drugs and I went to 6 rehabs to get myself off of those drugs. Those drugs were marijuana, alcohol, and mushrooms. So it was never like heroin or any of those, but all drugs are the same. They all take your life from you, all of them. And you can't look down on one without looking down on the other. You know what I mean? And I think I learned that in rehab. Rehab became a vacation for me to get away from it. So out of the 6 times I went to rehab, I put myself in there 4 of those times. 2 of those times I had gotten in trouble. And the way to get out of it was to go to rehab. So I went. But the other 4 times I put myself in there because I needed a vacation. The depression was so strong and so heavy on me. All I wanted to do was kill myself all the time, And that sounds like so rough to say, but it's so real because everybody feels that way. At one point in their life, they feel like, I just want to give up. I don't want to do anything anymore. I don't want to breathe.
I think that everybody at some point, obviously varying degrees of that, but at some point in your life, everybody just feels like, I can't go any lower. I just give up. I can't do this anymore. So what made you decide to finally get through all of this and pull yourself up?
Well, that didn't happen until about a year ago.
Wow.
I suffered all these years. I'm 42 now. So I suffered all these years with it. The whole time thinking, I didn't ask my kids to be here. And after I had my firstborn, I quit the music. I stopped playing, to raise the kids. And because I always wanted to be a father. I always wanted to do that. I always wanted to care for something, more than myself. I couldn't get past the whole, I didn't ask them to be here. Maybe they would be better without me, and those really crippling, depressive thoughts. And I suffered with that until I went to South Carolina and I went to pick up my godsons who had just graduated from the Marines. They were all happy. We were in this nice hotel. We were living nice. Everybody was, everybody was so super happy, and we hadn't seen them in 8 months. So we were super happy, but couldn't get over the wanting to die thing. And it had just gotten me so much that I tried to kill myself when I was there. On the midst of stepping off of a balcony, I screamed out to God and I told him, I said, I said a lot of things to him I shouldn't say. I shouldn't have said, but I was very much against Jesus. For my whole life. I was like, there's no way my life was like this because of him. He wouldn't do that. If he cared about people, why do these things happen? Logical thinking, right? That I was a very illogical person. I think because of the circumstances and situations I went through, I became a logical person. But either way, I was against him. And I called out to him and I told him, hey, if there's something for me, you need to tell me. You need to show me what it is. I'm saying to him, like, you better do this, right? And I look back at it now and I'm very lucky that, he didn't choose to teach me something in that moment, that what he chose to do was save me. And he did in a heartbeat, in one moment. I felt like my heart shifted, like turned in my chest, and all of the depression and everything I ever felt, the anger against me and for myself, because that's what it was. I always hated myself, never ever anybody else. I always cared about people. I didn't want people to suffer, but I hated myself all the time. All of it left me, went right out of my feet. For the rest of the time I was there, I couldn't stop crying. And everybody's looking at me like, why are you crying so much? Like, dude, let's go swimming or something, and my godsons are like, what's going on? And my wife looks at me and she says, Jesus saved you. That's what happened. That's why you feel that. And she was right. I felt what love was for the first time in my life, like actual love, not the word, not the emotion, not the chemical concoction that happens in your brain. The love he had for me. I felt it. And thinking about it now makes me want to cry, honestly.
Makes me want to cry again.
I had never felt that love in my life, that he set me free. And from that moment, I haven't had it. I was able to quit drinking. I was able to quit. I'm 3 years sober from alcohol because I ended up quitting that before. And that was the first time I went to God. I went to God and I said, if you're real, then you can do this. This is nothing for you. Take my alcoholism from me, because I do it every single day and I can't get away from it. Take it from me. Show me that you're real. Not only did he take it from me that night with no withdrawals, and I was a drinker for 20 some odd years, but he took it away from my wife as well. And my wife hasn't touched it since. No withdrawals. Neither one of us got sick. And that's when I started to believe in God. That's when I started to say, that was not me, because I should want to drink. I should want a beer right now. I should want one to relax. Because I've earned it, right? That was right. The whole thing in my head was, you earned it. You dealt with your depression. You didn't kill yourself today, so have a beer. Right. Anything my addiction could tell me. So I'm crying profusely during this whole trip. Can't get the story out of my head, right? And I don't know where it's coming from. So I start thinking, okay, Jesus is telling me something. He's trying to tell me to do something. And I was a screenwriter before. Right. So I started writing screenplays, but they were all violent, like Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, The Crow reboot. I did some reboots. Right. So that's what I was writing. And they were fantastic, but they were evil. They were very just bloody and gory. And you know how those movies are. And I'm trying to get noticed. I'm trying to get an agent. I'm trying to do the whole Hollywood thing, because this is what my dream was before being a musician. I'm always going to be a musician. You put me behind a drum kit or a guitar or something, you're going to get a show. That's just always been what I have been. And I think that's what started me to having motivation to do other things. And networking and being able to talk to people and coming out of my skin a little bit and being comfortable. But so then I got this thought in my head and I started writing it as a film. And I was like, for some reason I started thinking, this isn't going to work. I need to write this into a novel. And I don't know why. I never wrote a novel before. Never. Didn't even try it. Never gave it a thought. So I did. I wrote it into a novel. It took me about 8 months. My wife read it and sobbed her eyes out. And then she told me that it needed to be released. This is why he changed your heart so you could write this. And it's called The Endless Fall. It's a story about a 15-year-old girl named Ivy who has to struggle through depression, abuse, and nightmares of her own suicide to find and keep Jesus in her life while protecting her younger brother, Ethan. It's very much parts of my childhood. It's very much my struggle with faith, just told through the eyes of a 15-year-old girl. And that 15-year-old girl, honestly, is my daughter, Lotus. She's the one that I mimicked the book off of. I wanted her to have something that just in case I didn't make it through my depression, that she had something that she could go back through and see that I was struggling and how important it was to keep Jesus because of what it does. And it's a very realistic story. There's not this happy ending that everybody would assume there would be, right? Because faith is tough. Faith is an everyday thing, right? And I wasn't like this a year ago. He changed my life on that balcony. He saved me.
Pete, sometimes I feel like, and I've had this discussion with my husband, Dave, a lot in the car when we're driving and, the discussions, the topics
it's the best
that
time.
you come in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've always said to Dave, faith, no matter what you can have faith in onions, for crying out loud. But faith is one of the most important things that you can have in your life because it gives you something to believe in.
That's
and it gives you something to hold on to. Faith is huge. And I was born and raised Catholic. I got away from Catholicism. Well, I'll say this. I got away from the church as I got older and became disillusioned with the church.
Understandably,
I've always held on to Catholicism, and I tend to go a little between Catholicism and more spiritual thinking these days. But my faith, a lot of times, my faith is what got me through.
Yeah.
And it's so strong. And it doesn't matter what your faith is. The fact that you have it can really help you get through, I think.
Yeah. And it's hard to do, and I think that's the lesson in it, is that it's hard to keep your faith. So that in turn changes your heart as well, because it's something that you have to keep on top of.
Don't you think that the challenges that get thrown at you, I mean, this is how I feel, the challenges that get thrown at you are there to sort of get you off that path. And I think it just makes you stronger when you hold on to what you do believe in and what you feel in your soul. And it just makes you a stronger, better person when you do. People talk about, these religious people, but they have faith. And that makes them stronger. Whether you or I agree with any specific person or religion or anything, there's faith there. And that makes you a stronger person, I feel like.
Well, yeah, faith isn't easy to have. And that's, that's one of the reasons why the book doesn't end the way people think it would. Actually, after I wrote it, a whole bunch of people came to me and said, what happens to this character? What happens to that character? So I ended up writing another 2 chapters to it and releasing it as a special edition. So now that's the only version you can get. And it kind of sort of clears up a couple of questions that people had, because I was getting like emails. Well, what happens to Lana, or what happens to this character, or, and I felt like I had to write another 2 chapters to kind of sort of end it and be like, okay, because everybody's like, where's the sequel? Where's Lana's story, or where's Ethan's story, or where's Caleb's story, or somebody else, any other character in the book? So it's a one and done. I wrote the screenplay for it, and that is being pushed through the channels now and is on its way to being a film. So grateful for that. And I think that was also part of what he wants to happen. I just hope that the book will help someone back away from the edge and try to give it a chance, try to give it a chance to move forward.
Has writing this book been therapeutic for you?
Yes, absolutely. I realized at the end of it that I was really writing the book for myself. I was really writing it to myself, and I was trying to tell myself, it's okay. It was like another version of me came to me, put, his hand on my shoulder and was like, you're going to be all right.
I love that for you. And I love your story because, as a child who had sort of the world against him right from the beginning, to come through all of that. Yes, it took a long time to get through it. That's what our lives are for. We're here, and some things take a lot longer, but you did it. You really did it. And we hear so many negative stories of things that didn't end well. But for you, it was a positive ending, or, well, you're continuing to live in the positive. And I think that's amazing because you have a family who loves you very much. And so the fact that you could come full circle and do this and in turn try to help other people by writing this book is really amazing.
Yeah, I'm always constantly trying to help other people. I've reached out to bands all over the world to be part of the Endless Fall soundtrack, which is a soundtrack that's coming out with the book. I mean, the book's already out, but if you buy the book at specific places, you'll get the soundtrack for free. And a bunch of big name bands have been able to say yes and give me their songs to put on the soundtrack. And I'm super grateful for that. I mean, it's like, I try to help people around me. Just get people on the radio. We push their art. I'm in the People's Artist Contest, and I'm like 5th place. So I try to vote. I try to vote for other people every day. I'll make a post and I'll say, today I'm going to vote for you. I've never met you, but I'm going to vote for you today because, why not? It's not about if you win. It's about your artist getting out there, and supporting other artists is the most important thing you can do in this platform. Not because of what it can do for you, but because of what it can do for them. I'd rather see people above. I'd rather help people get up just a little bit above me, so I can see them, so I can see them achieve what they want to achieve. Like, that's what's important to me.
We're only here. We get one life. So
yeah, I want to help people.
It's important to help others, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
last question before we get to our little rapid fire questions.
All right. Awesome.
If there's somebody out there who's struggling, who's going through any number of challenges in their life today, what's one piece of advice that you would give them to help them through it?
Well, I think giving them one piece of advice limits me a little bit, right? Because those problems are huge, right? And I do this. I do this almost every day. Because I go on shows and I say, please contact me. If you're having a problem, if you're having an issue with something, I will keep it confidential. And I do this. And I talk to an awful lot of people now. Somebody just lost their son and, I've talked to them and it's a lot and it's heavy, right? But in those situations, one thing of advice is it could work for somebody and not work for somebody else. So one, it depends on the circumstance, and two, the limiting, right? So what I would say is that they're not alone. I'm here to listen, first of all, because we're social creatures. And I think that what we really need is somebody to care for 5 seconds. Just care. Stop worrying about everything that's going on in your life and take yourself out of it for 1 second and care about somebody else, right? And that can do an awful lot for one's soul. You can pick somebody up out of the gutter just by lending an ear. And I think that's important.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that, because I think we all need to just take some time and think about everybody else.
It's super important. You take yourself out of your life and realize other people are suffering too, maybe not in the same way you are, but they still are. And you can help them just by listening sometimes,
I agree. All right. So at the end of every episode, I like to kind of wrap things up with a little bit of fun. And we do 5 really quick rapid fire questions. So are you ready?
Yes. Let's go.
All right. Here we go. What's one thing in life that you appreciate now that you used to take for granted?
Jesus.
Are you more of a sunrise person or a late night person?
Both. I'm up all the time because I have insomnia. So I write early in the morning and then I find myself writing late at night. So yeah, both.
Left-handed or right-handed?
Right-handed.
What's a movie or book that has stayed with you over the years?
The Basketball Diaries. It hits me every single time. Leonardo DiCaprio playing a young heroin addict in Philadelphia. Amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it because it will make you cry. That Requiem for a Dream is kind of the same thing, but Basketball Diaries always stuck with me.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
You'll get there. Keep pushing forward. Lift up your chin.
Pete, what's the name of your book?
The Endless Fall.
All right. And where can people get it?
They can get The Endless Fall, Abused, Home, and my new one coming out called This Is How It Will End, all on barnesandnoble.com or amazon.com.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'll put everything up in the show notes to everybody so that you can get all of the information about Pete and his works.
I really appreciate being on here, man. This is an awesome show. I loved it.
Thanks for listening to Real People, Real Lives. If today's story resonated with you, make sure to subscribe and leave a review so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, every person has a story worth hearing. Until next time, take care.